Trump said the deal holds, but the first test came before the plane even left. JD Vance was supposed to move toward Switzerland. The United States and Iran were supposed to begin the technical talks that would turn Trump's memorandum into something real. Then Lebanon erupted, Israel struck, Hezbollah killed Israeli soldiers. Iran-linked diplomacy froze, and suddenly the question was not whether Trump could announce a deal. The question was whether Trump could enforce one. That is the fight behind the headline. Trump wants the world to see control. Iran wants the world to see that Washington was forced to negotiate. Israel wants the freedom to keep acting in Lebanon. Hezbollah wants to show Israeli forces can still be hit. Lebanon is trapped under the weight of everybody else's leverage. And America is now facing the one question every superpower hates. What if you can sign the deal, but you cannot command the map? Reports say the United States and Iran were supposed to hold talks at the Bergenstock Resort in Switzerland. The talks were meant to take the memorandum and move it into the hard details: nuclear limits, enforcement, regional ceasefire conditions, and the economic pressure around the Strait of Hormuz. But Switzerland said the talks would not take place on Friday, and Reuters reported that Vance dropped plans to travel. That is the first warning sign, not because talks can never restart. They can. Not because every delay means total collapse. It does not. But because the deal's first major implementation step ran straight into the battlefield, and that matters. Because the Middle East does not obey a press release, the map does not stop moving because Washington says the temperature is coming down. Militias do not disappear because diplomats book a resort. Allies do not always wait because America wants a clean headline. That is the problem Trump faces now. He got the announcement. But enforcement is the real test. And Israel just forced that test into the open. Reuters reported that the Lebanon escalation included Israeli airstrikes that killed 18 people and a Hezbollah attack that killed 4 Israeli soldiers. A senior U.S. official later said Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire beginning Friday. But even if the ceasefire holds, the damage to the diplomatic track has already been exposed. Because Iran can now say this: why should we move forward while Israel keeps operating in Lebanon? Israel can say this: why should our security be limited by a US-Iran framework? Washington can say this: the process is still alive. And the public can ask this: if the process is alive, why did the first major meeting get postponed? That is the confusion. And confusion is the story, because every side now has a version of events that helps them. Trump can say he pulled Iran toward the table. Iran can say America accepted a memorandum instead of unconditional surrender. Israel can say it will not let diplomacy restrict its security operations. Hezbollah can say resistance still has teeth. Critics can say Trump promised total strength and accepted something much weaker. Supporters can say a limited deal is still better than a wider war, and Lebanon gets the cost. Again. That is the human part that cannot be hidden under diplomatic language. When bombs hit residential areas, families do not experience technical talks. They experience rubble. They experience fear. They experience missing people. They experience another night where great powers talk about leverage while ordinary people pay the bill. That is why the anger in this story is real, but the anger has to be aimed with precision. We do not need to claim that every motive is proven. We do not need to say Israel definitely acted to derail Vance's trip. The timing alone is politically explosive. As Vance's diplomatic track was supposed to move forward, the Lebanon front became the reason the track stalled. That is enough. That is the pressure point. And that pressure point is not only military, it is economic. Because the deal was not just about missiles and uranium, it was also about the Strait of Hormuz. Reuters reported that Iran said it would waive fees linked to Hormuz during a 60-day negotiation period, while ships would still need to coordinate transit in advance because navigational risks remained. That means the deal was supposed to create economic relief. more confidence in shipping, less fear around oil flows, less pressure on energy markets. A chance for Trump to say he stopped a war and protected American consumers at the same time. But if Lebanon keeps threatening the diplomatic track, Hormuz does not become normal just because someone announced it. Shipping companies do not move on optimism alone. Markets do not price hope forever. Oil traders do not care about political slogans if the route remains uncertain. And American voters do not care about diplomatic vocabulary when gas, groceries, and inflation fear move in the wrong direction. This is how a Middle East ceasefire becomes an American kitchen table problem. That is why Trump needed the deal to look strong. He needed Iran boxed in. He needed Israel aligned. He needed Hormuz calming down. He needed Vance heading to Switzerland. He needed the story to move from war to diplomacy. Instead, the story moved from diplomacy back to the battlefield. And now Trump's own language is working against him. Axios reported that Trump said there were no limits to his power after the Iran war. That matters because Trump had previously used hardline language, including the idea of unconditional surrender, before accepting a more limited memorandum framework. So, now the contradiction is brutal. If there are no limits, why did the talks stop? If Iran was forced into submission, why can Iran still delay the next step? If Washington controls the alliance, why can Israel's operation in Lebanon shake the entire process? If Trump ended the crisis, why does the crisis still depend on actors who are not obeying his timetable? That is not control. That is exposure. And it exposes the difference between power on television and power on the map. Power on television is easy. You hold up a document. You say the deal is strong. You say the enemy had no choice. You say America won. But power on the map is harder. Power on the map means Iran still shows up. Israel still waits. Hezbollah stays quiet. Lebanon does not become the trigger. Hormuz becomes safe enough for shipping. Markets believe the route is stable. And allies do not turn your diplomatic victory into their own security exception. That is the part Washington cannot spin. The deal does not fail only when somebody tears up the paper. It can fail through loopholes, through delays, through local battles, through security zones, through statements that sound cooperative while actions say something else. Through every side saying, "We are committed," while preparing for the next strike. That is how a ceasefire becomes a performance, and that is what Trump has to prevent now, because if he cannot, the memorandum becomes something dangerous. Not peace, not victory, a pause that every actor uses to reload its own leverage. Iran can use the delay, Israel can use the security argument, Hezbollah can use the battlefield, Trump can use the headline, markets can use the uncertainty. And Lebanon has no choice but to absorb the consequences. So now test the leverage. What did Washington gain? Washington gained the framework. It gained a possible path toward technical talks. It gained a chance to reopen the economic conversation around Hormuz. It gained a political argument that Trump stopped the crisis from getting worse. But what did Washington not gain? It did not gain automatic control over Israel's Lebanon policy. It did not gain guaranteed Iranian compliance. It did not gain a stable Hezbollah-Israel front. It did not gain immediate trust from shipping markets. And it did not gain the right to declare victory before the implementation works. What did Iran gain? Iran gained time. Iran gained a diplomatic process. Iran gained the ability to say the United States negotiated instead of forcing surrender. Iran gained a way to link Lebanon to the wider deal, and Iran gained the ability to wait while Washington tries to control its own side of the map. What did Israel keep? Israel kept military tempo. Israel kept the argument that Lebanon is a security front. Israel kept pressure on Hezbollah. And Israel kept the ability to test whether Washington's deal with Iran can actually restrain Israeli operations. What did Hezbollah keep? Hezbollah kept the ability to disrupt the front. It kept the ability to impose costs. And it kept enough battlefield presence to make Lebanon impossible to separate from the Iran track. What did Lebanon get? Lebanon got the price. The airstrikes, the fear, the dead, the instability, the humiliation of being treated as a pressure point in a larger regional negotiation. And what did Trump get? Trump got the microphone. But the microphone is not the map. That is the final answer. Trump controls the announcement. Israel controls part of the military tempo. Iran controls part of the delay. Hezbollah controls part of the instability. Markets control the punishment. And Lebanon carries the cost. That is why the next move matters so much. Watch Switzerland. Do the talks restart? Watch Vance. Does the US delegation move again? Watch Iran. Does Tehran return to the table or demand more proof that Lebanon is quiet? Watch Israel. Does it treat the ceasefire as a limit or as another temporary pause? Watch Hormuz. Do ships move with confidence or with hesitation? Because if the talks restart, the ceasefire holds and Hormuz stabilizes, Trump can still claim the deal survived its first real test. But if the talks keep slipping, if Lebanon erupts again, if Iran hardens its position, and if markets lose confidence, then the meaning changes. Then Trump's Iran memorandum is not proof that America controls the region. It is proof that America can still announce a deal before the battlefield agrees to obey it. And that is the real limit, not the limit Trump admits, the limit the map reveals. Trump says the Iran deal holds. Israel just tested it. Now the world is watching whether Washington can turn a headline into control.